The starship Resolute glided silently through the violet skies of SciFi-Prime. Its polished hull reflected the twin suns above, making it shine like a silver comet. Inside the ship, Captain Ethan Drake adjusted the straps of his uniform, trying to calm his racing heart. This was not just any mission. He was the first human envoy to the Xerian Empire, a species known across the galaxy for their elegance, intelligence, and ruthless pride. Ethan had read countless reports about the Xerians. They were taller than humans, with pale blue skin that shimmered faintly in the light. Their eyes were deep and intelligent, often seeming to see straight into one's thoughts. And, according to the reports, their royal princess, Lyra Zyra, was as brilliant as she was cruel in her humor. The shuttle landed on a platform high above the capital city. The buildings around it were like nothing Ethan had ever seen, towers of crystal and metal, spiraling toward the sky, bridges connecting them in elegant arcs. Gravity fields kept small flying vehicles hovering steadily, moving like glowing fish in a sky of purple and gold. Ethan stepped onto the platform and felt his feet wobble, even with his training. This city felt alien, unsteady, and grand beyond imagination. A group of Xerian attendants approached, their long limbs moving with the precision of dancers. One of them, tall and silver-eyed, bowed deeply. "Welcome, human envoy," she said in a melodious voice. "Princess Lyra awaits you in the palace." Ethan nodded, trying to hide his nervousness. He followed them through twisting corridors that seemed to defy physics, ascending staircases that curved in impossible arcs and passed under glowing arches filled with floating symbols. Every surface sparkled, every detail was intricate. He could feel the eyes of palace staff upon him, some curious, some skeptical, many amused. At last, he entered a vast hall. It seemed to stretch endlessly, filled with light and sound, echoing with soft music from floating instruments. At the far end, sitting on a raised platform, was Princess Lyra. She looked nothing like a human, yet her beauty was undeniable. Her skin glowed faintly like moonlight on water, and her eyes were sharp, almost piercing. She wore a ceremonial gown of translucent material that shimmered with her movements, revealing the grace of her form. Ethan felt a small knot of fear in his stomach. He had imagined meeting alien leaders before, but none had ever felt this intimidating. Lyra's gaze fell on him instantly. A small smirk appeared on her lips. "So," she said, her voice smooth like silk, "this is the human envoy. I must say, I expected someone taller, stronger, perhaps less ordinary." Her words cut softly, but everyone in the hall laughed. Ethan felt the warmth of embarrassment creeping over him. He bowed politely. "Your Highness, I am honored to represent humanity." Lyra's smirk widened. "Honor? We shall see if you deserve it. Human," she gestured, and a floating screen appeared, projecting images of ancient Xerian warriors, their movements flawless, their blades glowing. "This is our tradition," she said, "a test of skill and strategy. Humans are said to be clever, yet fragile. Let us see if you can match even a child of Zyra." Ethan's heart pounded. He had trained extensively in hand-to-hand combat, strategy, and swordplay, but Xerian warriors were legendary for their speed and elegance. He felt a flicker of doubt. Could he, a human, really face this challenge? The princess leaned forward slightly. "Tomorrow, at dawn, you will duel before the court. Do not disappoint me, human, and do not fall on your face. We would all find it amusing." Her smile was sharp. The courtiers laughed again, their voices ringing in the hall like wind chimes after the audience. Ethan was escorted to the human quarters, a surprisingly comfortable room with large windows showing the sprawling city below. He sat on the edge of the bed, thinking. He had faced many challenges before, from hostile planets to alien mercenaries, but this was different. This was not a battlefield. It was a court full of cunning minds and judgmental eyes. One wrong move, one failed step, and he would be mocked in front of the entire empire. Yet, beneath the fear, a spark of determination ignited. He was human. Humans had survived impossible odds on Earth, adapted to extreme conditions, and turned weaknesses into strengths. He would not fail. As night fell over SciFi-Prime, Ethan examined the ceremonial dueling protocol. Xerian duels were not just physical, they were mental. Each movement, each strike, had rhythm and reason. Observing the patterns of their martial techniques would be key. He memorized what he could from the holographic training records, practicing movements in his small room, imagining the princess before him. Meanwhile, in her chambers, Princess Lyra laughed softly to herself. She had faced many ambassadors before, but none had the strange, quiet determination she saw in this human. He looked ordinary, even fragile, but there was something unusual in his calm, unwavering eyes. "We shall see," she whispered, tilting her head. "We shall see if humans are truly as clever as they claim." The night was long. Ethan trained, studied, and planned, while the city outside shimmered under two moons, its towers gleaming like crystals in the darkness. There was no sound of human life here, only the soft hum of alien technology, the whispers of courtiers, and the faint rustle of exotic plants grown in the palace gardens. At dawn, the first light touched the crystalline city. Ethan adjusted his uniform, tested the grip of his human-crafted blade, and walked toward the grand hall. Courtiers were already gathering, their eyes curious and critical. The air was thick with anticipation. He felt the weight of every gaze, every expectation. But he also felt something new, excitement. As he entered, all eyes turned to Princess Lyra, who sat with an amused, almost imperious expression. "Ah, the human," she said softly, almost mockingly. "Come forward, and let us see if you can even lift a blade properly." Her words meant to sting, only strengthen Ethan's resolve. He stepped forward confidently, blade in hand. The courtiers gasped softly. A human, standing tall and composed in the face of Xerian elegance. Even the attendants who had greeted him before looked impressed. He knew he was far from their standard of perfection, but humans had a different kind of power, unpredictability, creativity, and courage. Lyra rose gracefully, her own weapon appearing in her hand, glowing faintly with energy. "Remember," she said, her voice light yet sharp, "I'm not easily impressed. Fail, and you will provide all of Zyra with amusement." Ethan met her gaze. "Then I will try my best, Princess." His voice was steady, calm, though his heart raced. This was not arrogance, it was determination. Humans never gave up, even when the odds were impossible. As the first clash of blades echoed through the hall, the court watched in silent anticipation. The duel had begun, and with it, a story of human courage and ingenuity was about to unfold. A story that no Xerian could have predicted. The grand hall of GalacticPrime was alive with anticipation. Courtiers gathered in clusters, whispering and casting curious glances at the human standing at the center. Ethan Drake's hands gripped the hilt of his blade tightly, feeling the familiar weight of it grounding him. The human-made weapon might seem simple to the Xerians, but it was perfectly balanced. Crafted with precision and purpose. Princess Lyra descended the steps gracefully, her energy blade already glowing in her hand. Every movement she made seemed effortless, flowing like water. She stopped a few paces from Ethan and raised an eyebrow. "Are you certain you are prepared, human? Or shall we call it mercy?" she said, her tone sharp, yet almost playful. Ethan offered a calm nod. "I am ready, Princess." His voice held no fear, only focus. But even as he spoke, a small knot of tension pressed against his chest. The Xerians were fast, their reflexes unmatched. A single misstep could cost him not just honor, but also the respect of the entire court. The duel began. Lyra moved first, her blade flashing in a graceful arc. Ethan barely raised his own blade in time to deflect her strike. Sparks danced where the energy blade met the human metal. The court gasped at the sound, a mixture of awe and amusement. Lyra tilted her head, smiling faintly. "Predictable," she said softly, and struck again. This time Ethan stumbled slightly, barely keeping his footing. His movements were human, strong, determined, but not fluid in the alien style. Each block, each dodge, required effort, calculation, and courage. The courtiers whispered among themselves. "Look at him struggle," one muttered. "A human." attempting to duel a Xerian princess. Ethan felt the weight of their eyes and their judgments. He could almost hear the laughter in their whispers. He had trained for challenges, but this was different. This was a performance, a test of both body and spirit, and he was very aware that failure here would be humiliating. Lyra pressed her advantage. She moved with uncanny speed, circling him like a predator, her energy blade flashing in precise arcs. Every strike tested not only his physical skill, but also his patience and observation. She mocked him openly, speaking while attacking. "Come now, human. Your ancestors must have been clever, yet you move as though you've never seen a blade before." Ethan gritted his teeth but did not reply. Words would not help him here. Only skill, strategy, and focus could keep him in the duel. He noticed patterns in Lyra's movements, a slight hesitation before a spinning strike, the way her foot shifted before a lunge. Each detail was small, but to a human mind trained to notice patterns, it was invaluable. The duel continued. Lyra's strikes were fast, but Ethan's endurance was remarkable. While he could not match her elegance, he could absorb and redirect energy with careful timing. Each parry and block drew murmurs from the court. They were not used to humans holding their ground in a duel of skill and grace. Lyra's smirk never faltered. "You are resilient, human. I give you that. But resilience is not enough," she said, attacking again. Her blade hummed, glowing brighter as she pushed him backward across the hall. Ethan's boots scraped against the polished floor. He stumbled slightly, and a ripple of laughter spread through the court. His face burned with embarrassment, but he refused to falter. Humans had faced ridicule before. It was nothing compared to the challenges of survival on Earth, where every mistake could be deadly. He shifted his stance, forcing himself to breathe slowly. Humans had a different kind of advantage: creativity. Predictable movements might be his weakness in a direct clash, but unpredictability, improvisation, and observation could turn the tide. Ethan began to study Lyra's strikes more closely, anticipating her attacks instead of merely reacting. The princess, noticing the change, tilted her head with interest. Perhaps you are learning," she said softly. "But do you think one human can truly overcome Xerian skill?" Her voice carried amusement, but there was a hint of curiosity. The duel intensified. Ethan narrowly avoided a spinning strike, ducking low and rolling to the side in a move that startled the courtiers. "He moves differently," one whispered. "Not with grace, but with cleverness." Others nodded. The whispers grew louder, mixing disbelief with fascination. Ethan's mind raced. Every strike from Lyra was powerful, every move elegant. But every movement had patterns, and every pattern had openings. He remembered his training on Earth, the countless hours in the gym, the forests, the mountains, learning to adapt to anything. He adjusted his position slightly, shifted his balance, and waited for the moment. Lyra pressed him hard, striking faster than before. Ethan blocked and dodged, but only narrowly. A small cut appeared on his arm, a shallow one, but enough to draw attention. Gasps echoed through the hall. The princess's eyes narrowed slightly. "Impressive endurance, human. But can you continue?" she asked, her voice like a sharp blade itself. Ethan gritted his teeth. Pain was nothing. Humans had endured far worse. He focused on her next move, noticing the subtle cues in her posture. Lyra's foot shifted, her blade's tip angled slightly. It was a tiny gap, but it was enough. With careful timing, Ethan moved. His human instincts, combined with careful observation, allowed him to deflect her strike and step inside her guard. The court froze. A human had moved into the space of a Xerian princess without being thrown aside. Whispers turned to astonished murmurs. Lyra's eyes widened slightly, a flash of surprise crossing her face. "Interesting," she said. She did not strike back immediately, as though curious to see what the human would do next. Ethan took a deep breath, holding his ground. His mind was racing, analyzing every previous strike, every pattern, every nuance. He realized humans had something no Xerian could predict: adaptability. They could improvise in ways the elegant Xerians could not, despite the small cut on his arm. Ethan did not falter. Each movement he made now was deliberate, calculated, yet creative. He began using unexpected angles, slight finds, and sudden shifts in weight. The audience gasped as he avoided attacks that would have surely struck a less observant warrior. Lyra's smirk faltered slightly. The amusement in her eyes was replaced with something sharper, interest, and perhaps even respect. "So, the human learns quickly," she murmured. Her attacks became more cautious, testing rather than overwhelming. The duel slowed for a moment. Ethan, breathing heavily, raised his blade in a defensive stance. His mind raced with strategies, watching the princess for any hint of weakness. He knew the duel was far from over. This was not just about skill. It was about demonstrating humanity's unique qualities: courage, intelligence, and unpredictability. Lyra's expression softened, almost imperceptibly. "You are not like the others," she said, almost to herself. "Most would have fallen long ago. Yet you endure and adapt." Curious, her words, though quiet, carried through the hall, drawing attention. The courtiers looked at one another, amazed that a human could hold his own against the princess. Ethan felt a small surge of confidence. He had been mocked, humiliated, and tested beyond his limits, but he had endured. The princess's words, though subtle, were an acknowledgement of human resilience. He had not yet won, but he had shown that humans were not easily defeated. The first part of the duel ended with a pause, as both combatants stepped back. The court remained silent, holding its collective breath. The princess's eyes met Ethan's, and for a brief moment, something unspoken passed between them: recognition. He was a worthy opponent, not by the standards of alien elegance, but by the standards of courage, intelligence, and unwavering determination. Ethan lowered his blade slightly, allowing himself a small moment of relief. He had survived the first phase of humiliation and mockery, and he had done so without losing his dignity. This was only the beginning, but he had proven something important: that humans were clever, adaptable, and capable of surprising even the most proud and skilled alien. As he stepped back to catch his breath, he knew the next phase would be harder. Lyra would not make it easy, and the court would watch every move. But Ethan also knew that humans thrived under challenge. The mockery had fueled him, and now, with careful observation and strategy, he could turn the duel into a true display of human ingenuity. After the first duel, Ethan Drake retreated to his quarters, his body tired but his mind sharper than ever. The mockery of the Xerian court still echoed in his mind, but instead of discouraging him, it fueled a determination he had never felt so strongly. He knew that humans had a way of turning weaknesses into strengths. It was in their nature to adapt, improvise, and overcome. And if he wanted to survive the next duel, he would have to embrace this truth. He sat at a small table, examining the human-crafted blade he had brought from Earth. It was a simple weapon compared to the glowing energy swords of the Xerians, but its strength lay in its balance and versatility. Ethan ran his fingers along the edge, feeling its weight and perfect sharpness. "You and I," he whispered to the blade, "we are going to show them something they didn't expect." The human envoy knew he could not rely on raw speed or elegance. Lyra's attacks were faster, more precise, and deadly. But humans had another advantage: observation and creativity. If he could study her movements, notice patterns, and find the tiniest gaps, he could turn the duel to his favor. Ethan began by reviewing holographic recordings of past Xerian duels. The images shimmered in the room, showing tall, graceful warriors spinning, leaping, and striking with energy blades. At first, the motions seemed flawless, impossible to counter. But as he watched, he noticed small inconsistencies, subtle pauses, predictable arcs, and repetitive strategies. The Xerians relied on their training, their elegance, and their speed. They expected opponents to react in predictable ways. But humans did not follow patterns. Humans could be unpredictable, clever, and relentless. He practiced these insights in his quarters, moving slowly at first, then faster. Imagining Lyra's blade striking from all angles, he used his human build, agility to shift weight, change stance, and react in ways no Xerian would anticipate. Each movement was deliberate, measured, and carefully honed to exploit gaps he had observed. As he trained, he realized something important. His human body had limits, yes, but those limits were not weaknesses, they were opportunities. A Xerian might leap too far, overextend, or underestimate a sudden shift in position. A human could absorb pressure, bend unpredictably, and turn defense into offense. This was the secret of humanity, resilience, and adaptability, combined with intelligence and courage. Meanwhile, in her own chambers, Princess Lyra observed Ethan through subtle palace surveillance. At first, she had only seen a human struggling, clumsy, and predictable. But after the duel, she noticed something unusual. Ethan did not seem broken by her attacks, nor was he afraid. He adapted quickly, analyzed carefully, and endured challenges that would have crushed others. The princess's curiosity was piqued. "I underestimated him," Lyra murmured. Pacing the length of her room, most humans would have fallen, their confidence shattered. Yet he endures, he learns. Curious, her expression softened slightly, not in pity, but in interest. "Perhaps there is more to these creatures than I realized." Ethan spent the night in quiet preparation. He trained until his muscles ached. But he did not stop. His mind was constantly analyzing, imagining the duel, anticipating Lyra's movements. He tested new techniques, combining speed, feints, and sudden changes in direction. He practiced defensive strikes, then turned them into counterattacks, exploiting gaps that only a human could spot. Every moment was preparation, every motion a step closer to victory. By dawn, Ethan felt ready. Not for the first duel. He had survived that, but for the true challenge, showing the Xerians the unique power of human adaptability. He understood that victory was not just about strength or elegance. It was about using his mind, his instincts, and his creativity to turn the impossible into possible. When he entered the palace training arena, the Xerians were already assembled. Many whispered among themselves, astonished that the human had survived the first test. Some doubted he could endure another encounter, but Ethan's calm, confident demeanor silenced much of the speculation. He raised his blade in salute, and the crowd noticed the steadiness in his eyes. Lyra appeared at the far end, her energy blade flickering in the morning light. Her expression was more measured than before, no longer merely mocking, but testing, evaluating. "You survived the first challenge, human," she said, her voice carrying authority. "But now, we see if you can truly match a Xerian." The duel began. Lyra struck first. Moving with the fluid grace of her kind, Ethan responded with careful precision, blocking and dodging in ways that surprised even the courtiers. Every strike he faced was a lesson. Every movement she made revealed her strengths and, more importantly, her patterns. Ethan adjusted his stance, shifting his weight subtly. A Xerian would expect a predictable parry, but he did something different. A slight feint, a sudden pivot, a tiny movement that turned defense into counterattack. Sparks flew as the blades met, and the audience gasped for the first time. The human was not merely enduring. He was shaping the duel on his terms. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Interesting," she murmured, circling him carefully. "You adapt quickly. But can you do more than survive?" She launched a series of rapid strikes. Testing his speed and endurance, Ethan parried, blocked, and dodged, each motion precise, each step calculated. He was learning not only from observation, but from instinct. Humans could read opponents, sense timing, and act unpredictably in ways the Xerians could not. The court murmured in amazement. They had expected another display of human clumsiness. Yet here was Ethan, meeting the princess strike for strike. Even minor mistakes were corrected instantly. Subtle adjustments that turned near failures into successful defenses. He was proving the lesson of humanity. That strength alone was not the measure of a warrior. Intelligence, resilience, and adaptability mattered just as much. Lyra, realizing the shift, increased the intensity of her attacks. Her blade moved in arcs faster than most could follow. Yet Ethan was prepared. Each strike he faced revealed a pattern. Each movement hinted at an opening. He began experimenting with human unpredictability, feints, sudden shifts, and unexpected angles. The audience gasped again and again, whispering among themselves. No human had ever performed like this before. A small smile appeared on Ethan's face. He had found his rhythm. The Zarians expected a rigid response. He offered creativity. Where they were precise and elegant, he was flexible and unexpected. The duel was no longer a display of raw superiority. It had become a contest of minds, a test of human ingenuity against Zarian perfection. Lyra paused mid-strike, realizing her usual tactics were not overwhelming him as they would any other opponent. Curious, she whispered, almost to herself. A human who learns so quickly, who adapts. Her voice trailed off, replaced by focus. She could no longer underestimate him. Ethan saw the opening. It was small, almost imperceptible, a slight hesitation in her stance, the faintest gap in her guard. He knew he could not strike recklessly, but a careful, deliberate move might give him a chance to show the court what humans were truly capable of. With measured precision, he shifted his weight, pivoted, and moved closer. Lyra struck, but Ethan anticipated the attack, sidestepping and redirecting her energy blade. The audience held its collective breath as a human, once mocked and ridiculed, now matched a Zarian princess not only in defense, but in skillful counteraction. For the first time, Lyra's expression softened completely. She had expected entertainment, yet here was something different, a worthy opponent, clever, determined, and resilient. Ethan's human qualities, adaptability, observation, intelligence, and courage were turning the duel into a spectacle no one could have imagined. As the duel ended for the day, the princess lowered her blade. "You have exceeded expectations, human," she said quietly, almost reverently. "There's more to your kind than I believed." Ethan, breathing heavily but standing tall, nodded. He knew this was only the beginning, but he had proven one undeniable truth. Humans were clever, capable, and never to be underestimated. The sun rose high over SciFi-Prime, bathing the grand hall in a warm, golden light. Courtiers filled every available space, their eyes shining with anticipation. Today was not a practice or a test. Today was the real duel. The tension in the air was almost tangible, as if the palace itself was holding its breath. Captain Ethan Drake stepped into the center of the hall, his human-crafted blade steady in his hands. Every muscle in his body was alert, every sense tuned to the slightest movement. The long hours of preparation, study, and practice had led to this moment. He knew he could not rely on speed alone. He would need strategy, observation, and the unique adaptability that humans possessed. Princess Lyra Zyra appeared on the opposite side, her energy blade humming softly. Her usual smirk was gone, replaced with a calm focus. She moved with the fluid grace of a true Zarian warrior, every step calculated, every motion precise. She had watched Ethan, studied him, and realized that this human was different from any she had faced. His endurance, his intelligence, his unpredictability, all were challenges she could not ignore. "Prepare yourself, human," she said, her voice carrying across the hall. "This is not a test. This is a duel to honor, skill, and respect." Ethan nodded, meeting her gaze without hesitation. "I am ready, princess." His voice was calm, unwavering. The courtiers whispered among themselves. Some doubted that a human could stand against a Zarian princess, yet others leaned forward, eager to see how this duel would unfold. The duel began. Lyra struck first, her blade flashing like lightning. Ethan moved with precision, blocking and parrying, his eyes following her every motion. The first few exchanges were fast and fierce, sparks flying where the energy blade met the human metal. Each strike tested his reflexes, his endurance, and his focus. Lyra pressed him hard, circling like a predator. "You have learned, human, but can you truly keep up?" she said, her voice calm but sharp. She launched a spinning strike, aiming to end the duel quickly. Ethan anticipated the move, pivoting his body and redirecting her attack. The audience gasped. He had moved in a way no Zarian could have predicted. For the first time, the princess's expression showed surprise. She had expected a human to be clumsy, to falter under pressure. Instead, Ethan's movements were deliberate, intelligent, and surprisingly effective. He was not merely surviving. He was adapting, learning, and responding with creativity. The duel intensified. Lyra attacked with a combination of speed, precision, and power. Ethan blocked, dodged, and countered, each movement carefully calculated. He noticed subtle shifts in her stance, tiny gaps in her defense, and small hesitations in her strikes. Humans excelled at noticing patterns, and he used every observation to his advantage. He began to use feints and misdirection, moves that were unfamiliar to the Xerians. Each time Lyra adjusted, she found herself facing something unexpected. A sudden shift to the left, a quick change of angle. A defensive move turned into a counterattack. Ethan's unpredictability challenged her in ways she had not anticipated. The court watched in stunned silence. The human who had once been mocked was now holding his ground, forcing the princess to adapt and rethink her strategy. Murmurs spread among the spectators. "He is clever," one whispered. "Not fast, not perfect, but clever." Another added, "Humans are not like any species we have faced." Lyra's attacks became more aggressive, testing not only his skill, but also his endurance. She launched a series of rapid strikes, her energy blade moving with blinding speed. Ethan blocked and dodged, feeling the strain in his muscles, but refusing to falter. Pain was irrelevant. Humans endured, adapted, and turned challenges into opportunities. Then came the moment Ethan had been preparing for. He noticed the tiniest gap in Lyra's guard, a slight hesitation before a spinning strike. It was a small opening, but enough for a precise move. With careful timing, he pivoted, moving inside her defense. The audience gasped at the boldness of the maneuver. A human had entered the space of a Xerian princess without being thrown aside. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. She had underestimated him before, but now she realized he was not just enduring, he was responding intelligently. Her strikes slowed for a moment, almost as if she were testing his next move. Ethan held his ground, waiting, analyzing, calculating. Then he made his move. With a smooth motion, he unsheathed the hidden edge of his blade, a mechanism that gave him extra leverage and reach. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, but it gave him an advantage he had been preparing for. He struck with precision, redirecting Lyra's own energy blade with a controlled motion. The court gasped again. Even the attendants were silent, amazed at the skill displayed. Lyra stumbled slightly, surprised by the effectiveness of the human strike. She quickly regained her balance, but the momentary gap had allowed Ethan to demonstrate his adaptability and ingenuity. This was not brute force, it was strategy, creativity, and courage combined. The duel continued, but the balance had shifted. Lyra attacked with more caution, testing him carefully. Ethan responded with calculated moves, using every human advantage, observation, timing, unpredictability, and clever strategy. Each clash of blades was met with skillful counters, and each audience member leaned forward, captivated by the display. For the first time, Lyra's expression softened. She had mocked him before, laughed at his human awkwardness. But now she saw something entirely different, a warrior who combined intelligence with courage, adaptability with skill. He was not perfect, but he was more than worthy. Ethan pressed his advantage carefully. He did not strike recklessly, but moved with deliberate precision, exploiting small openings and maintaining his defenses. The crowd watched in awe. They had never seen a human move like this, not fast, not elegant, but clever, resilient, and unpredictable. The duel reached its climax. Lyra launched a series of rapid strikes, her energy blade moving in a blur. Ethan parried, dodged, and then, at the perfect moment, moved inside her guard, redirecting her attack with his human blade. Sparks flew, illuminating the hall, and the audience erupted in silent astonishment. The princess paused, her blade lowered slightly. "Enough," she said softly, almost reverently. "You have proven yourself, human. You fight not only with skill, but with intelligence, courage, and creativity. I underestimated you." Ethan lowered his blade, breathing heavily but standing tall. His muscles ached, his body was tired, but his spirit was strong. He had survived the mockery, endured humiliation, studied his opponent, and turned the duel into a display of human ingenuity and resilience. The courtiers whispered among themselves, their astonishment evident. They had expected entertainment, a display of human weakness. Yet here was a human who had challenged a Xerian princess and earned respect. Some nodded quietly, acknowledging the lesson. Never underestimate the human capacity for creativity, courage, and adaptability. Lyra took a step forward and extended her hand. You have earned my respect, Captain Ethan Drake. You are clever, courageous, and worthy of standing beside a Xerian warrior. Today, you have shown that humanity is not to be underestimated. Ethan accepted her hand, a smile of relief and pride crossing his face. Thank you, Princess, he said, his voice steady. I have learned much from you as well. The court erupted in applause, not only for the display of skill, but for the unprecedented acknowledgement of human ingenuity. For the first time in Xerian history, a human had not only survived a duel against a princess, but had earned respect and admiration. As the hall slowly emptied, Ethan and Lyra walked together, discussing strategy, technique, and the lessons learned. There was no mockery now, only mutual recognition. The human had faced the impossible and turned it into triumph, proving that courage, intelligence, and adaptability were just as powerful as speed and elegance. And as they walked, the city outside shimmered under the bright light of twin suns, reflecting the beginning of a new era, one where humans and Xerians could stand side by side, united not by fear or mockery, but by respect, ingenuity, and shared purpose. The Grand Hall of SciFi-Prime was unusually quiet in the aftermath of the duel. The courtiers, still amazed by what they had witnessed, whispered in awe. Humans were known across the galaxy as clever, resilient, and resourceful, but no one had ever seen a human match a Xerian princess in skill, strategy, and courage. Today, Captain Ethan Drake had changed perceptions forever. Ethan lowered his blade and took a deep breath, feeling both relief and pride. His muscles ached, and a thin sheen of sweat coated his brow, but his spirit was stronger than ever. This duel had been more than a challenge. It had been a test of humanity itself, showing what determination, intelligence, and adaptability could achieve. Princess Lyra stepped closer. Her own energy blade dimmed and tucked carefully to her side. Her eyes, once sharp with amusement and mockery, now shone with respect. She extended her hand to Ethan, and for the first time, there was no tension, no challenge, only recognition. You have proven yourself, Captain Ethan Drake, she said. Her voice was calm but sincere. Humans are not fragile, unskilled, or naive as I once believed. You have shown strategy, creativity, courage, and honor. I misjudged your people. Ethan accepted her hand firmly, feeling the weight of the moment. Thank you, Princess Lyra. Your skill and guidance taught me more than I could have imagined. I hope this is just the beginning of a partnership between our peoples. Lyra's lips curved into a small smile. It shall be more than a partnership. It shall be an alliance, one built on mutual respect and shared knowledge. And perhaps friendship. Her tone carried warmth, an emotion Ethan had not expected to see in someone so proud and disciplined. The courtiers murmured among themselves, some in astonishment, others in admiration. It was rare for a human to earn the recognition of a Xerian princess, especially one as esteemed as Lyra. Many had doubted Ethan before the duel, predicting failure. But now they witnessed history, a moment where human ingenuity and courage had altered perceptions forever. Over the following days, Ethan and Lyra worked together, meeting with the leaders of the Xerian court and sharing knowledge. Ethan demonstrated human problem-solving techniques, strategies for resource management, and approaches to conflict resolution that had worked on Earth. Lyra, in turn, shared the secrets of Xerian technology, energy manipulation, and martial disciplines. The process was not easy. The two species were very different, with distinct ways of thinking and living. But each meeting revealed a common truth: when humans and Xerians combined intelligence with creativity, strength with adaptability, and courage with strategy, they could achieve remarkable results. During these sessions, Lyra observed Ethan closely. She had once mocked him, thinking him fragile and ordinary. Now, she admired his persistence, his calmness under pressure. and the way he analyzed situations before acting. She began to see that humans were not simply survivors of a primitive planet, they were inventors, thinkers, and adaptable warriors capable of facing challenges no other species could. Ethan, for his part, had learned to appreciate the elegance and discipline of Xerian culture. Their art, technology, and strategy were far beyond anything humans had achieved alone. Yet, he realized that the combination of human creativity and Xerian precision could achieve something extraordinary, an alliance that would make both species stronger, safer, and wiser. As the weeks passed, the palace began to change. Humans were no longer seen as clumsy or weak. Instead, they were acknowledged as clever, capable, and resilient. The courtiers who had laughed at Ethan's initial struggles now sought his insight, eager to learn from his perspective. Children watched him with fascination, inspired by the human who had stood his ground and earned respect in a world that seemed impossible to conquer. One evening, as the twin sons of SciFi-Prime set over the crystalline city, Lyra invited Ethan to walk with her in the palace gardens. The gardens were unlike anything on Earth, plants that glowed faintly in soft colors, trees that bent and swayed with subtle energy currents, and small creatures that floated gracefully in the air. "You have changed more than perceptions," Lyra said softly, walking beside him. "You have changed hearts, even my own. I see now that humans are not simply strong or clever, they are persistent, adaptable, and brave in ways that cannot always be measured by skill alone." Ethan smiled, feeling the truth in her words. "Thank you, Princess. I could not have done it alone. Your guidance, your willingness to test me, even your mockery, it forced me to rise to the challenge. Humans learn through experience, through facing obstacles. And you gave me one of the greatest challenges I've ever faced." Lyra laughed softly, the sound like music through the glowing gardens. "And you have surpassed every expectation. You've shown me that true skill is not just in elegance or power, but in courage, intelligence, and adaptability. Your people have much to offer the galaxy." They walked in silence for a moment, watching the light shift across the crystalline towers of the city. Ethan felt a sense of accomplishment, but also humility. He had proven himself, yes, but he also knew that this was only the beginning. Humans and Xerians had much to learn from each other, and the path ahead would require cooperation, trust, and patience. Suddenly, a messenger arrived, bowing deeply. "Princess Lyra, Captain Ethan, the Council requests your presence." They wished to discuss the formal alliance between humans and Xerians. Lyra turned to Ethan, her expression serious but kind. "Shall we?" she asked. Ethan nodded. "Lead the way, Princess." The council chamber was vast, with representatives from every major Xerian city. They had witnessed the duel, studied Ethan's conduct, and now awaited the formal proposal for collaboration. Lyra stepped forward, her energy blade sheathed, and gestured for Ethan to speak. "Honored leaders of the Xerian Empire," Ethan began, his voice steady. "Humans come from a planet far from your stars, a world that has faced adversity and challenges that would test any species. Yet we endure, adapt, and strive to learn. We bring not only courage and strength, but creativity, intelligence, and a willingness to face the unknown." He paused, glancing at Lyra, whose eyes encouraged him silently. "We seek not dominance, but partnership, to learn from each other, to share knowledge, and to protect not only our worlds, but the galaxy as a whole. Together, humans and Xerians can achieve far more than either of us could alone." A hush fell over the council. Representatives exchanged glances, some nodding slowly, others whispering. The human before them, once mocked and underestimated, now spoke with clarity, vision, and authority. His words carried the weight of experience, courage, and truth. Lyra stepped forward. "I have tested this human in combat, observed his mind, and seen his character. He has proven that humans are not to be underestimated. Their ingenuity, resilience, and courage are qualities that complement our own. I endorse this alliance fully, and I invite the Council to do the same." One by one, the representatives nodded, their acceptance unanimous. The alliance between humans and Xerians was officially recognized. Cheers erupted in the chamber, celebrating not only the partnership but the respect and trust earned between two very different species. In the following days, the palace was filled with collaboration, innovation, and learning. Humans and Xerians trained together, shared knowledge, and explored new technologies. Ethan worked alongside Lyra to design new strategies for defense, diplomacy, and exploration. Every day brought new discoveries and new opportunities for understanding. The mockery that had once defined his rival was gone. Where there had been doubt, there was respect. Where there had been scorn, there was admiration. Ethan had not only survived, he had thrived, proving the essential lesson of humanity, courage, intelligence, and adaptability can overcome even the most impossible odds. One evening, as the twin moons rose over SciFi-Prime, Lyra and Ethan stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The towers glittered like crystal stars, reflecting the light of the setting suns. "You have done more than win a duel," Lyra said softly. "You have changed perceptions, earned respect, and built a bridge between our peoples. I once mocked you, but now I see that humans are capable of greatness beyond what I imagined." Ethan smiled, feeling a warmth of pride and accomplishment. "Thank you, Princess. I only did what humans do best. We face challenges, adapt, and persevere. And I could not have done it without your challenge and guidance." They stood together in silence, watching the city shimmer, the air filled with possibility. Humans and Xerians had begun a partnership that would shape the future, not through fear or domination, but through respect, understanding, and shared purpose. And in that moment, Ethan Drake, the human once mocked and underestimated, knew that this was only the beginning. Humanity had proven itself in the eyes of one of the galaxy's most formidable species, and the lessons of courage, intelligence, and adaptability would resonate across worlds for generations to come. The story of the human who faced an alien princess, endured mockery, in one respect would be told across SciFi-Prime and beyond, a testament to the power of perseverance, strategy, and the indomitable human spirit.